Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, grab your popcorn and join us for some spine-chilling stories. Now let's dive in. On a beautiful summer day in 1906, a man named William C. Clark and his wife were driving through northwestern Connecticut in Litchfield County in hopes to find an area there to build their second home. As they were driving, they came across this beautiful sight of a forest in the mountains, so they decided to go for a drive up there to see if there's an area to build their home. The road began getting very bumpy and overgrown because nobody uses that road. So William pulled the car over and parked it on the side of the road while he and his wife walked the rest of the way. Once they got to the forest, they seen an open field that was full of apple trees and wild animals. It was almost like a fairy tale to them. So they decided that's where they are going to start building their second home. Once they got back to their house in New York, they signed the papers to purchase 1,000 acres of the forest called the Dark Entry. They were later approved, so William started to try find help all around Connecticut, but no matter what he did or how much money he offered, no one would help him. He just brushed it off and figured it's probably too hard for them to get to. So he decided he will build a house on his own. He began to cut down trees on his land and use the lumber to build his two-story home. Right below the home, there was a little brook, so he decided to build a little pool beside it so he can relax and watch the fish. After months of work, he and his wife took a trip to stay there for the holidays. After their relaxing, quiet vacation, they decided every holiday and summer will be spent in their new home in Dark Entry Forest. Until 1918, when everything changed. William got called to work for a medical emergency, so he headed back to New York, leaving his wife all alone. And what they didn't know was they built their home on an abandoned town called Dudleytown, and the locals believe it's cursed because of all the mysterious deaths and things that occurred there. About a day later, William was done his work trip, so he headed back home. Once the train got to the station, his wife wasn't there. He got a weird feeling that something was off. So he quickly started to walk back to the house. Once he entered the forest, he would hear all these owls howling in the distance. Usually this sound made him feel welcome, but this time he was scared and felt like something was wrong. So he began to run till he saw his house with the door cracked open. He stopped and his heart immediately started racing. He flung the door open and started to hear a loud noise coming from the second floor. He froze in fear, trying to figure out what that sound was. He ran up the stairs to investigate and realized that sound was a loud, evil laughter coming from their bedroom. He slowly opened the door, and what he saw was terrifying. He saw his wife in the back corner, rolled up in a ball facing the door, her eyes wide open, and her mouth open more wide than humanly possible, just creepily laughing in a high-pitched tone. William was so terrified, he turned around and ran out of the house to get help, and when she calmed down, the only thing she talked about was the strange creatures she saw in the forest. What she saw drove her crazy. She had to stay in an asylum for the rest of her life. Story 2. A few years ago, there was a young girl in her 20s named Rebecca, who was hiking a section of the North Umpqua Trail in Oregon with her sister-in-law Morgan. When they were hiking, they stopped to enjoy the beautiful view of the river. But they immediately began to feel extremely uncomfortable and uneasy. They got a feeling like someone was watching them. So the girls went to look over their shoulder to see if there was anyone there, but Rebecca noticed a string of bones hanging from a tree branch. She stood in shock, and their stomachs just dropped. After what they discovered, they decided to start heading back, but when they were walking, they heard another set of footprints walking behind them, but still couldn't see anyone. So they picked up the pace and ran, but so did whoever was stalking them. They managed to make it out of the trail and sped back home, where they immediately called the police to report what was happening. After a few days of the police investigating, they showed up to let Rebecca know that they were in fact being followed. She asked about the bones that they found and what or who was following them. He looked down at the ground and then looked back up and said he cannot say because no one will want to hike that trail again. After that, the two girls never hiked that trail again, especially after it burnt down, not long after finding the bones hanging. If you like this video, share it with your friends or hit that like button and subscribe for more.